I don't think she has the ability to talk to foreign leaders. I haven't seen any evidence of that. And I think that she is susceptible to manipulation because she doesn't have firm ideas about her own. I fear that she'll be manipulated by them and that those entities actually want a nuclear war. This time in history, if we get a president like that, it will, for the next 4 years, it may be too late for our country to ever recover.
So today I had the privilege of round 2 with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The first time we had a discussion, which I enjoyed a lot and thought was very worthwhile, the powers that be at YouTube decided that it was okay for them to eradicate it, which was not something that I was happy with and still remain unhappy about. We'll see if the same thing happens this time. So we covered, a lot has changed since that first interview, most markedly that RFK is now allied with Donald Trump, and that's quite a strange turn of affairs. We have a coterie of disaffected Democrats running on the Republican side against Kamala Harris. And what did we talk about? Well, we talked a lot about why RFK has become disenchanted with the Democrats. And I had pushed him on that issue in our first discussion, asking him, for example, when the left goes too far. We finally have the answer to that question. That's in this podcast, because RFK outlined 5 different ways the left has gone too far. So highlighting what? Highlighting their lack of care for free speech, highlighting the fact that they're now the party of war, highlighting the fact that they're no longer the party of the working class. Well, there's 3 ways that the left has gone too far, and that's the tip of the iceberg. We talked a fair bit about, well, the policy issues that Kennedy has been discussing with Trump, concentrating particularly on the health crisis, on free speech, and on international peace. And those do strike me as 3 major issues that we need to contend with. We talked about the development of Trump's new team, which is a remarkable occurrence. The fact that he has Musk, the fact that he has Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard, and of course Kennedy himself. That changes the political landscape dramatically, something the Trump team hasn't yet capitalized on. We talked a little bit about what the union might look like under a Trump administration with all these remarkable people in it. So join us for all of that. YouTube censors allowing. So I'm very curious about the alliance that you formed with Trump. I'm curious about whether you ever imagined that such a thing was a likelihood. And then I'm curious about why you decided it was a good idea.
I never imagined such thing was a likelihood. In fact, I was reading a statement that I had forgotten I made, but I made it repeatedly during the 18 months when I was running, after declaring that I was going to run, when people oftentimes would ask me, why don't you run with Trump? And I would say, and then on several occasions, I was approached by the Trump campaign about running as his VP. And my answer to that was always that that would result in a divorce with my wife, even if I had the inclination to do that, because it's something that just constitutionally she, at that point, could not have handled. And would have, I think, impacted her job and would have, it would and her friendships, her relationships, her family, etc. But a lot, we both learned a lot during the election. I saw this metamorphosis of the Democratic Party, the party that I was born in, raised in. My family has been involved in the Democratic Party since all of my great-grandparents came over in 1848 during the potato famine and landed in Boston. And it was the Democratic Party that they came over penniless and friendless. And it was the Democratic Party that provided for them, that made sure that they got food, that they got jobs, that protected them against the reigning hierarchy of power in Boston at that time, which was, run by what they call the Brahmin class, which was very hostile to Irish Catholics in particular. And my great-grandfather was the first Irish Catholic mayor of Boston. The first, let me put it this way, Irish Catholic ghetto mayor. There was one mayor before him that was Irish Catholic, but he was chosen by the Brahmins. And he was the first one who was, part of the rebellion of the Irish. And the ultimate takeover of Boston and many of our other urban areas by Irish Catholic politicians. My grandfather, John Fitzgerald, was called Honey Fitz because he had a beautiful singing voice that sounded like honey. And his contemporary, Patrick Joseph Kennedy, was a state legislature and a political boss in Boston. Their children married. Rose Fitzgerald married my grandfather. Joseph Kennedy, he was the treasurer for Franklin Roosevelt's campaign. He was the only Wall Street figure who supported Roosevelt. And then he became the first commissioner of the SEC. He had political ambitions of his own, but he ruined those ambitions by his anti-war position, both in World War I and then World War II. He served as the U.S. ambassador to the Court of St. James under Roosevelt to Great Britain. And then his children, his son Joe, who was killed during the war, gave a speech, would have run, and my grandfather had ambitions for him to be the first Irish Catholic president. He spoke, gave a keynote address at the Democratic Convention in 1940. My uncle, John Kennedy, became the first Irish Catholic president of the United States. My father served as Attorney General in the United States Senate, and then died, was assassinated in his own run for president.